If you pay attention to various sources of information, you're going to find information out there recently that says things like the fact that the media, the idea that the media has the lowest level of considered trustworthiness by the population at large in a very long time, in fact, possibly ever. Even so, there are a great many people who count on the media, more particularly what's termed the mainstream media, for information. And they largely seem to believe what they see and hear. I'm wondering what you believe can or should be done about that. Hello and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Friday, the 22nd of January of 2021. I welcome you, along, whether you're here on Rumble, on the podcast, or on YouTube. And the subject of today's video is the narrative. I wanted to talk about a few things, and the first of these that I wanted to discuss was the idea of certain things that have been happening to people who voice what amount to counter narratives to the mainstream narrative, right? When I say mainstream, I mean what is the common narrative that's being expressed in, say, for example, the United States at the present moment. There are any number of things that are being said, and we're not going to get into the details of those things. All I really want you to understand is that a lot of times there's a pretty typical standard narrative that's being pushed, and it's something along the lines of the Democrats are good and lovely, and the Republicans are horrible and bad, and here are the supposed reasons for that reality. But one of the things that's happening is that, particularly among tech circles, there is a tendency to attempt to silence the voices on the right. And literally we have people in the media, in technical entities like social media, and in politics who are talking about deprogramming people on the right because they disagree with what they believe, and they believe that what the right is putting out there is disinformation. Now, the interesting thing about that, and this is... the reason this is a problem is that it's counter to the existing narrative. Look, you can have whatever narrative you want out there as a leftist media site or as a rightist media site. I don't care. I'm going to listen to things and I'm going to pay attention, and then I'm going to make decisions about what's right and what's wrong. I'm not going to try and silence you. I'm not going to try and knock you off the given platform. So if you happen to be on Twitter and you're spouting leftist stuff, then I'm just going to let you. And the same applies if you're doing rightist stuff. And then I'm going to make my decision as to what you're saying and what you're doing, what of it is correct and what of it's incorrect. And when it's correct, I'm going to support it. And when it's not, I'm not. Dinesh D'Souza has started doing a podcast. And one of the things that he said today is people have it backwards. People don't support left-wing media because it says things to them and they go, oh, the left-wing media is right. They support the left-wing media because they believe certain things, and the left-wing media parrots the things that they say. And this is true for the right-wing media. I'm not, and for that matter, for everybody, quite frankly, even people who consider themselves centrist. Generally speaking, what happens is a person forms a set of opinions, and then he seeks out people who back those opinions up. And the question at that point is, what are they actually doing to back those opinions up? Are they just spouting the same thing that individual says in a gratuitous fashion, or are they actually finding and showing facts as to what's going on, what's occurring, and so forth, that makes it so that they actually sort of prove out what it is that they're saying in the process? But the point is, I don't care if they're just spouting stuff. It's an American thing to let them spout, to let them vent, to let them speak, and then to hear it and to decide what you think about it. It isn't a thing to knock them off their platform. And let me just go a step further, right? Or I won't go a step further, but let me say that they have gone a step further in deplatforming platforms that allow for things that they don't consider to be conducive to the narrative to stick around. So Parler is a perfect example. And I'm here to tell you, the thing of it is, for those of you on Rumble that I continually thank for the fact that you pay attention to what I'm saying, the thing of it is, the reason I'm so successful on Rumble, and I'm not horribly successful, but it's the place where I have the most success at this point. And again, it's piddly. You look at some of the more successful people, I'm nothing like successful on any platform. But The reason that I have the level of success that I do is there are thinkers who are listening to what I'm saying, and sometimes they're probably yelling at their screen as they're watching what I'm saying. No, 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 you dummy. Okay, I'm okay with that. In fact, I want you to tell me where I'm wrong so that I can either adjust what I'm saying or I can give you reasons why I believe what I believe that are inconsistent, the things that are inconsistent with what you believe. Okay, I'm willing to do all of that, and I have no problem with it, and I don't consider it a problem that people disagree with me. And the fact that they watch me when they disagree, as Tim Pool has said any number of times, is totally fine with me too. I'm fine with you yelling at me saying I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's fine, though nobody really has done that to this point. Here's my point, though. The idea of removing platforms or removing people from platforms is a bad one. Censorship is a bad idea. I don't care what you're censoring. Again, Mr. D'Souza was talking about the fact that I think it was Alan Dershowitz was holding a class or whatever, and he basically asked his students who's for free speech, and they all put their hands up, and then he gave them examples of free speech, and slowly the hands started to go down. Yeah, I really, or they all had their hands down if they agreed, whatever. But the point is, in the end, a lot of the people did not agree with free speech for things that they didn't agree with. And I've said it before, I'm in defense of repugnance. If you come out and you say something with which I disagree, it at least lets people know that you're out there and maybe shows how what you're doing or saying is justified. Okay, but in the worst case, it's your right to speak freely on that thing. And like I say, at some point I may disagree with you. You may say something and I may go, and I may actually come to conclude that what you're saying is correct. As I get older, I tend to find that less and less to be the case. But the question really is, what do we do about the fact that there is a narrative, and what do we do, to deal with it, to deal with its correctnesses and its incorrectnesses? And here's my answer. My answer is we continue to fight for free speech, for platforms that will support free speech. We continue to speak our minds. We continue to give the facts, the figures, and the information that makes our speech significant. But the most important thing is to continue to fight against that tendency towards censorship, deplatforming, and cancellation. We have to do that. We must do that. And maybe we won't change the mind of the people who are pushing the primary narrative. I'm not necessarily trying to do that. I'm more looking at the people who are undecided or shoring up those people who are decided but maybe don't have the strongest arguments in the world to what they support. But in the end, what it comes down to is what we have to do is continue to support free speech, to continue to oppose deplatforming, to continue to oppose shutting down platforms if the platforms are not doing things that are heinously wrong. And even give them the opportunity to reform themselves if they are. But the truth is, we shouldn't be shutting them down if they are, in my opinion. Again, look, when Al Jazeera or whoever shows beheadings, or if they do, and I don't know if they do, I'm just saying, whatever entity shows beheadings, I abhor that kind of thing, but I want you to know this is happening. And I want you to realize that people like me are not just doing what we're doing for no reason. I literally had a person put something on Facebook, recently, and the thing that, and I normally don't mention Facebook by name because I don't want to give them any more popularity than I have to, but they put something on Facebook and the thing was marked as false, and I just basically waved right past the "this is false" thing. I don't care what Facebook says about what's false or what's true. And this is another thing that we have to do, is ignore the fact that people are trying to push their narrative at us by marking things that are being said as true or false based on their narrative of one sort or another. And they'll say the silliest things in order to mark something as false. Oh, it wasn't so-and-so who said this. I don't care. The question is what was said important, reasonable, or not? Okay, I'm about out of time. Again, we need to push for free speech. We need to push against censorship. We need to push against deplatforming. We need to push against cancellation. We need to push against the removal of platforms. And for me personally, I'm going to move towards things like Linux, where I have more control over what's going on. All right, today is, as I say, the 22nd of January of 2021, and it is Friday today, so we're coming up on the weekend. I hope that your weekend ends up being a good one. Hopefully you've had a good, if maybe short, maybe not, week, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Friday, the 22nd of January of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.